What to sow in December. It's a bit of a change from the norm this time. I'm not talking about seeds for plants, but seeds of ideas.
Okay, so what sort of things do you not want to do again?
I don't want to do as many veg boxes as I did this year.
Okay.
Because if we just did them to 2 or 3 people and they came to collect,
Yeah.
or on an ad hoc basis. But the thing that I found really hard this year was it was producing the right amount of food because the weather the weather was so awful.
Yeah, but there's not a lot you can do about that. So that's the circumstances beyond the proverbial.
Yeah, so I find it mentally just really hard to make sure that I was keeping that flow of food rolling when I was also focusing on other things. And this year I was focusing on writing Grounded during the summer, and I know I'm already writing the next book.
Yeah.
But I think I kind of need to assume that my headspace will be taken up as much with that as I was with Grounded this year.
Plus the fact that something you didn't know when you signed up to write Grounded was that a lot of the intensive background work and the intensive dealing with publishers and sorting things out was also going to happen at the peak growing season.
Yeah, and yes, I didn't. And this year, I've because I've already started writing book 2.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that happened mid growing season last year will be happening, very soon. So before the new season gets going, I think rather than having just to keep on top of that rolling program of sowing new seeds to make sure that I've got particularly the harvests that are quick to mature.
Yeah.
I'm going to reduce that pressure on myself because it's not a pressure I need to add. And maybe I'll feel differently next spring, and that's one of the difficulties of doing these discussions in the winter, because in the winter I've got no energy for anything. So I can't imagine me racing around the gardens doing stuff all summer, but I know I will.
But at the same time, it's also, in some respects, a good thing to not over-plan and over-commit.
Yeah, definitely not to over-commit.
It's much better to go, I can do more and be able to do more, rather than, oh no, I've got far too much.
Yeah. So I have really enjoyed doing the veg boxes the first year and this year.
The expanded version,
yeah. But I think for next year, because of other things I want to do out in the garden, I want to be realistic. So I want to be writing, I want to be doing the courses.
Yeah.
So there's another plan for next year. I want to make sure that I've got either courses on site or online.
I think we are going to have to look more and more at online for things like that, because even with the progress that has been made in certain areas, I think it's still going to be a while before we'll be able to have
people here on a regular in groups. Yeah, so I want to get those done. But in terms of what else do I not want to do, that's probably the only thing I want to reduce, and that's it's not that I'm not doing it, I want to reduce it next year.
Is there anything that we grew this year that you or we have decided we didn't enjoy sufficiently that we weren't going? I'm sure there were a couple of squashes or...
Oh, there have been a few squashes where we've said, interesting, but I don't know if we'd bother again.
Yeah.
So there were 2 very small squashes, which were lovely tasting, but I keep cooking them and we're not eating them.
Right.
So I think
that's
next
a bad
year...
sign.
It is a bad sign, isn't it? So I think next year we'll stick with butternut squash, the blue Hubbard squash. If I did one plant of spaghetti squash, that would just give us a change.
Yeah.
I know you're not hugely keen on spaghetti squash.
No, not hugely, but if you mix it in with other stuff, I don't necessarily notice.
Yeah. The thing about spaghetti squash is that it's prolific in producing. Yeah. So
what was that one that tasted like baked potatoes?
So that was a sweet dumpling, and that was the one that I'm suggesting maybe we don't grow again,
right?
Because we had one and we quite enjoyed it. But since then, we haven't really eaten. We've picked around the edges of them.
Right.
But I would like to grow more butternut squash because we are eating those. And I'll carry on growing a jumbo pink banana squash purely for the novelty of it. And that's just for me in some ways. Although we'd eat it, that's really just, it's a bit of fun. And I like the way the plants are so huge.
But I think it's important to have a bit of fun out there.
Yes.
It's
yes.
I mean, it may not be the largest growing space in the world, but it's far from the smallest, and you've definitely got room to grow some fun.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. So those are the squashes. So in the market garden area, I don't think I need to give over as much space for growing veg this year if we're not doing 20 shares of veg boxes.
Yeah.
I've got a new fruit cage to go up there.
Yes.
So it can either be fruit or brassica.
Yeah.
So I could put fruit in it. And it might even be worth growing fruit in large pots so we can move them around to different areas, so a different space next year until we work out exactly where we want them to go.
And also some of them might need moving, if just to get the most of the sun more often.
Yes.
So we maybe we need to put them on rolling platforms.
Yeah, I don't know if our floors, the ground is flat enough for that. So we could do that. And then the other thing I bought this autumn is I've bought a selection of roses.
Yes.
Bare root roses, and I've potted up for now. Just put them in pots to sort of hold them. But it might be quite nice to make that area a fruit area and then get a load of roses in it, which will bring in pollinators. I'll get a great deal of pleasure from. I love roses.
I know you do.
So I'll enjoy them, but then they're not a wasted plant because we have the rose hips from them.
Yeah.
And I make the rose hip jelly and rose hip wine.
Yeah. And you could always sell some cut flowers as well.
Yes, and I really could. I'm sure there would be people who would.
I mean, I know there are a lot of people. There are a lot of places that sell cut flowers, but then more people start selling them. So there was obviously a market for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So that would be the market area. In terms of anything else that we've grown,
I don't think there is.
Except for turnips. I do like turnips, but I grew an awful lot of them this year.
And we didn't grow as many things, so there are certain things I think we need to possibly look at growing more of next year for us, like potatoes.
Potatoes, beetroot. Well, I grew plenty of potatoes this year, but they got caught
blighted, didn't they? Yeah.
Caught by blight, which left us fewer than we might want. And one of the other things I did this year was I grew onions from seed for the first time, and they were really good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to grow onions from seed again. That variety was called Bedfordshire Champion. They were nice. They grew really well. It almost made me wonder why I've been buying them in sets in the past. But I think for 2021 I'll get some sets and grow some from seed.
You could do a comparison.
So and do a comparison. That would be good. So obviously I've already got in the autumn planting onions, but I'm talking about ones that we, the seeds and the sets that we'll put in spring. Yeah. And that would be a really good experiment to have a look at those.
Is there anything in the more exotic, more unusual, more we would have to import but we could grow ourselves?
We could look at citric plants, citric fruits.
Because we could grow those in the polytunnel, maybe.
We could grow those in the polytunnel.
You had some success with melons the other year.
Last year, yeah. I didn't grow any this year.
No, but that was largely because you were using the space for the market for the food boxes, weren't you? The veg boxes.
It really is a shame that you can't preserve melons in the same way that you can with squashes.
Yes.
So that I'm busy pointing at the squashes, but there's that whole thing of they can just sit for quite a long time, whereas the melons ripen and then go stodgy. Yeah. But yes, we could do melons. We've got the grapevine in there, which hopefully this year will produce its first lot of fruit. And I've done some cuttings, although they're not actually cuttings, I've done layering. So I've pinned down a piece of the vine into the ground.
Okay.
And put a stone over it just to hold it in place.
Yeah.
And then after a few months, that then has formed roots, so I can just separate those
Oh,
off.
okay.
So I've taken off three, but I gave one away to a friend. So we've got 2 new plants from that vine that came from Tony.
Yeah.
And I've also got an outdoor vine where I did take a cutting from next door, and that's just been grown in a container this year, but we could get that into the ground as well. So that should give us plenty of grapes.
And we were also looking at encouraging the local panda population, because I know you've got some bamboo plants in.
I have got some bamboo, so that's growing in buckets as well. I've got an awful lot of stuff growing in tubs, buckets, containers, so that we've got the flexibility to move things around and have a look and say, do we want that there? Do we want that there? Because now's a good time of year to kind of try and do that imagining of what things might look like or be like.
And that also looks into the animals, because I know we wanted to this year, but didn't for various reasons, look at the duck area. You were talking at one stage about moving their enclosure so that part of what is currently their enclosure could be used for something else.
Yes.
And also give it that chance, as we have with the chicken field around the back where the beehives are, give it that chance to regrow and recover from 3, 4, 5 years of ducks tramping all over it.
Yes. So I had suggested that we put a duck house at the far end of the field. It means that we've got a longer walk to put them to sleep each night. No, we're not putting them to sleep, but
Put them to bed.
Put them to bed. to put them to bed and to make that secure. But they could then be down, and so instead of it going north south, it would then go a little bit east west, or maybe be an L shaped. But it would also mean that the area of what's effectively at the back of the polytunnel would then be used, because that's been resting for 2 years.
Yes.
So it would allow them fresh grass, fresh area, all those extra bugs and things, and then it would allow this bit nearest the house to recuperate and recover. And we'd still use the duckling pen for raising ducklings, and then move them down
scoop them down,
down to the other end. But it would give us a space that's about 35, maybe 40 feet wide. So it's got to be at least 10 metres across, and maybe 70 feet long. That area that at the moment is looking seriously trashed by the ducks.
Yeah, and we've got some trees down the back of that to deal with as well. We have that fruit tree that came down. Oh
yes, the plum tree. That just needs to come out now, doesn't it? I think we asked the tree surgeons to come and remove that.
Possibly. I think we'll have to look. I think we need to go in and have a proper look at it. We haven't been down there for a while because there's been so much else happening.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be one of our late winter, early spring jobs, is going to be getting into that space and assessing it properly.
Yeah.
There's no chance on earth that we're going to get down there during December and do anything with it.
I don't even think in January either. If the tree's okay, we're better off, because it's a plum tree, we're better off not pruning and cutting that back in winter.
Yes.
We'd be better off doing that very early spring. We would have been better off doing it 2 months ago, but I think
there was a lot of life in the way 2 months ago.
There was a lot of life, yes. So I think that's a spring job.
Yeah, that's planted a few ideas, hasn't it?
It has planted a few ideas. Are we going to raise more ducks next year?
I would have thought so.
So I'm going to ask that carefully. Are we going to raise more, or are we going to raise replacements?
I think we are going to refresh the flock.
Right. Yeah, that's fine. The 5 oldest girls have completely stopped laying. That one, the one that waddles her whole body from side to side with the black on her bill. She's such a graceful old lady. Really, she needs to be either rehomed or go off to freezer camp, because she's not a productive animal, and
they're not pets.
And they're not pets, but This is where I get and become unstuck because, well, she's a lovely old girl.
Oh, we do that. We've done that with the ducks from the outset, haven't we? We've had one or two that have. Actually, it happened with the chickens to a certain degree, but not to the same level. But we have always had one or two that have got a free pass because they're just so lovely.
Yes. So there's that to do.
And on the subject of animals, we have rested chickens this year. Whether we want to start having chickens again next year or not, I don't know.
I don't know either.
I think if we weren't doing anything with the duck area, maybe we'd be more inclined to look at chickens again. But I think we have that work that we're planning, and we are going to have to look at the security of the ducks down there because obviously we do know that's where the foxes got the turkeys.
Yes, although they did get the turkeys when turkeys decided to roost down there overnight instead of in their house.
Yes.
And that was, I hadn't realised they hadn't gone to bed. The other big task that I want to do, which won't have visually a huge impact, but I do want to do it, is when we moved here, I laid down weed suppressing membrane in the food forest, the pathways in the veg garden, but mostly the area in the food forest. And I this year want to lift that weed suppressing membrane because it was fine at blocking out some of the weeds, put the wood chips on the top of it, and the weed seeds have germinated in the wood chip and then just grown all through the membrane.
Yeah.
So before we end up covering it again and putting another thick layer of wood chips in there, I actually want to take that membrane up and dispose of it. It did its job. I don't want to go through the next 5 years knowing there's a layer of plastic membrane underneath what's growing.
Yeah.
And as that area has evolved, and to some extent evolved in its own way, it's obvious that we're never going to have that weed free.
No.
I think I need to just change that mindset of it must be weed free and go, okay, well those weeds are supporting a whole load of wildlife.
Yeah.
But let's get the plastic out.
Yeah.
So that's a task and a half.
Yes, it is.
So that can but that doesn't all need to be done at once, and that can just be done bit by bit.
I think it's the only way we can do jobs like that.
So this year was the year that I was going to learn to can. I've done a bit of that.
Yeah, I know people want to see canning videos.
I know, and I really don't feel expert enough. So I have been referring.
If I can do it, anyone can.
Yeah, if I can. New skill for next year. Well, I still haven't learned to do hedge laying, which I was going to do, and I will need to learn how to do something with our hedges because they're getting quite wild and and full.
Yeah, I think though you normally end up picking up new skills that you didn't know you were going to need.
Well, there is that. The other thing I quite like to have a go at is grafting fruit trees. So buying in some root stock and then grafting from the trees that we've got.
Yeah. Is this to create a new variety or...?
No, this will just create new plants of that tree. So the rootstock determines the size the tree will grow to.
Okay.
And then you graft on a bit of whatever variety you want.
Okay, so it's not like the pear tree we've got in the orchard, which is two different types of pear.
No, but I could do that. I could do two different types of apple.
Yeah.
But what I was actually thinking of is the apple tree that was behind the greenhouse when we moved in, and Jane helped me move to the middle of the food forest. It's such a nice apple. I would really like some more of it.
Yeah.
But we don't know what variety it is because it didn't have a label on it. So I could do some grafting of that apple onto rootstock, which would then give us more trees in the future.
Yeah, and more quickly than growing them from seed.
Yeah, and the thing about growing stuff from apple seeds is you don't know that it won't necessarily come true to the variety.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because there's more than one apple tree around, so it will have could have cross-pollinated. So the only way to have an absolutely true to form, true to variety trait is to do the grafting.
Okay.
So I think that would be quite interesting to do.
Right.
Where we plant them afterwards is another.
Well, that's where we need more space, isn't it?
It is. There is a bit of space. at this end of the duck field between that last damson and the eucalyptus.
Yeah.
Although, eucalyptus, I think there's something in the eucalyptus that stops stuff growing around it quite so nicely.
Yeah, possibly.
A growth inhibitor of some sort. But no, there is some space there, or there is some space at the very far end of the market garden.
Yeah.
Do you know what's really nice is a lot of it is just changing and tweaking things and trying bits, because I'd quite like to learn that skill rather than it being, none of them are huge major construction or development projects, and I think that's a nice thing about having got this far into this project.
Yeah.
And now it's a much more gentle rolling program.
Yeah, gentle evolution rather than major change.
Yeah.
Also, though, it's a gentle evolution rather than just repetitive.
Yes, and I think that's really important.
Yeah.
So that neither of us are getting bored with that process.
Yeah, I think so.
So lots to think about, lots to take forward, and
we won't get all of it done. I mean, we always sow far more ideas than we end up harvesting.
absolutely. And it will be interesting to come back next year and see how many of those we've done.
I mean, how many have we not harvested this year that we sowed in
Oh,
December 2019?
Yes, quite a few.
Mind you, a lot of that was circumstances beyond our control.
Yes, let's blame circumstances beyond our control.
What can we blame next year? Tune in and find out.